I'm Casti Quistorf. I am the Executive Director of Klamath Film, and with us today is Hayley and Kirk, who are the creative minds behind Walla Walla, and it is a part of the 11th Annual Klamath Independent Film Festival. Hayley, Kirk, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so excited to be showing Walla Walla. It's just, I personally loved this film so much, so it's such a joy to get to chat with you both today. Hayley, so this is your first kind of take at filmmaking, and so I'm so curious as to how this process was for you, and how kind of working as a team together went.
Yeah. I'd like to think that I would have told the story in a different way if it wasn't a film, but the biggest reason I think that it is a film is because I know Kirk and he was willing to work with me and he knows how to make a film. There was a festival project called Return to Wonderland here in Portland, and the festival commissioned 4 artists to create new works on film that represent the current moment in our world from a place of wonder. That was the sort of theme. So I submitted the pitch for this, got a little budget, got 6 weeks to deliver a final product, and we just started running. We hit the ground running.
Wow, that's so impressive and so cool. And I love, obviously there's very like current elements behind this film and inspiration and stuff. So do you want to talk a little bit about how these current events impacted the film? Obviously it kind of is at the heart of it. If you want to talk a little bit on that.
Yeah. So like I said, the pitch for the commission was respond to the current moment in time. And this project was, we pitched the project before Roe versus Wade was overturned, but after the leaked memo that implied that was going to happen had leaked. So me in particular was really looking at like what states were going to be affected and how we in the Pacific Northwest in particular would be affected. And knowing that like Idaho has a trigger law in place and there are very few places where one could get an abortion in Idaho already, but then also like near Idaho, it just being a rural area. So I was just thinking a lot about the way that could hypothetically impact someone and then now is probably impacting people now that it is reality.
But yes, anyway, so what a beautiful way to frame it with these 2 friends who are on this long road trip together. And what I loved also so much about the film is that it really feels like you're with them on this journey together and feeling all their emotions and what can come up and all the downsides of a road trip and all the stress that comes with it too, along with this added kind of heart behind it. So were there any, like, as you're doing the shots, as you're taking it, were there any funny behind the scene moments or anything that like kind of sticks out to you as an anecdotal thing while shooting?
I mean, we had a lot of fun shooting. One thing that's fun to tell people is that our 2 actors, Sammy and Aphomia, I was connected with them by the festival producer for Return to Wonderland, and they are like real life best friends and had done a similar road trip together in Texas several years before. So this was like really personal for them as well. So we did have a blast, and then they just kind of like did their thing. And here's, I guess, the story that I'll tell is that the very last thing that we shot for 3 days. And the very last thing we shot was the final scene of the film as well, which takes place at night, and it's lit primarily by the headlights of the car, exclusively by the moon and the headlights, right? And it turns out that if you leave the headlights of the car on for an extended period of time, the battery will die. So it was like 1:00 in the morning. Everything was done, and I was just like, and I borrowed my little sister's car, which is what we were doing. So we were in the middle of the Columbia Gorge, like on a back road somewhere, 1:00 in the morning. And I was like, everybody just go home, because there was like, you know what, I'll stay, I'll figure this out, I'll call AAA. And luckily,
we very much refused to let her stay there on her own.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
People were much more reasonable. We were actually able to jump my car jump Sabrina with the other car that was there, so it all worked out. But like that was just a real like you're on a high because you got this beautiful final scene with the dust and the lights, and then oh my god, now I'm trapped. It was a real up and down.
Okay, so some wise words of advice for any future filmmakers or filmmaking endeavors. You know,
Run the engine a little bit.
Yes, just a little bit. Maybe just throw it in there. You know, I can totally see that happening to anybody, and I'm very thankful to your team for staying with you, beside you, from the highs and lows.
For sure.
Absolutely.
The other big car story that happened is the day after we were finished filming. Well, the day after we were finished filming most things, we were actually going to do more pickup shots with like just the car riding around everywhere. But the day after we were like done with the actors, the car was stolen. So yeah, like I guess luckily it she's since been recovered.
Yeah.
After like a couple weeks, but
yeah,
luckily that didn't happen like a day sooner.
Yeah.
Almost is feeling like the car's a little bit cursed, but I you know,
she's been through a lot.
Yeah, and we trust her, and you know, she's on the up now, I hope.
Yeah, she's back. I mean, I saw her not an hour ago. She's still kicking.
She's a trooper.
So glad to hear that. So Hayley, your grandmother had a huge influence on you in regards to this film. Can you tell us a little bit about her and her influence?
Sure. So my grandmother, she was a lifelong artist, and super, super supportive of all of her grandchildren in all of their endeavors, particularly their artistic ones. She actually spent like the last 6 months of her life teaching herself how to watercolor after, you know, a life of painting and doing all sorts of other things. And she got really good at it really quickly. Super talented. So I was really excited to be able to tell her, and she loves Kirk's work as well, as a photographer. And I was really excited to tell her, like, hey, we're going to make this cool project. And I was able to have that conversation in the hospital. She had been experiencing heart failure. So, you know, that was happening right as we found out that we were going to move forward with the film. And it was actually during like our last conversation that I got, what turned out to be our last conversation, that I got to tell her about the film. And like truly at the same moment, the little hospital TV had the crawl going across that said that Roe versus Wade had been overturned. And so that was like a real roller coaster. And all of a sudden we were not in hypothetical land anymore with the film. It was all of a sudden very real. And a few days later, Durelle died, and she died in her home, which is what she wanted. And she was cremated after she died, which is what she wanted. And that really got me thinking a lot about like how incredible it was that she was able to have her bodily autonomy respected after her death, and how like there are living people all over America right now who are not going to be able to experience that now that that Roe versus Wade has been overturned and so many abortion bans have gone into effect. A lot harder for people to exercise that freedom.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm so sorry for your loss, and it surely seems like her love of art is kind of living on through you, and your love of art seems to have a huge influence on your life. Were there any directors or works that you took inspiration from in making this film? And this is also a question for you too, Kirk, if you have any favorites.
Yes. I had to remind myself what my influences actually were, but I had a couple of different works that I kept in mind. I mean, there's your classic road trip movies, right? So I was thinking about Thelma and Louise, and I was thinking about Mad Max Fury Road a lot, which is like also has that like reproductive rights undercurrent, which is fun. I was thinking about the Agnes Varda film One Sings and the Other Doesn't, which is about friendship and also reproductive freedom. And that's like a really lovely experience. And I was also thinking about the Ernest Hemingway short story called Hills Like White Elephants. It's available for free online. You should go check it out. It's a very quick little read, and it's just like it positions you as the reader as eavesdropping on a couple at a train station who is definitely not talking about their upcoming abortion. So it's that kind of naturalistic listening in feeling.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, I mean, Anya Sparta is definitely on my mind always and forever. Abbas Kiarostami, just because like half of his films take place entirely inside a car, so that's always an important one to think about. Just the knowledge that you can like rely on the writing and the actors to like be charismatic enough to make that work. I made 3 films with a friend of mine years ago named John Rangel, who kind of he was a former instructor of mine and then brought me on to shoot. Sorry, we actually made 4 films, 2 features and 2 shorts.
Oh, wow.
And he kind of taught me a lot about filmmaking in general, and I feel like his influence is still a big part of me. So like I look at Walla Walla and I can, even though like Hayley has like never met him, I still feel like I can see his influence just because he really influenced the way that I shoot and my approach to filmmaking.
Wow, absolutely. Yeah, wow, I'll definitely have to check out all those wonderful inspirations and people. I love sharing influences. So for you, Kirk, were there any challenges? I mean, yeah, it is in this car scene. And so what kind of takeaways and lessons did you learn from shooting this project?
I mean, scheduling is a big thing. There's only so much we could do with like the time we had. But we actually like got a whole rig to put on the front of the car to have like front of car shots. But it was like it took so long to set up. We always like saved it for like the end of the day. We're like, we're gonna do this later, and then we like kept having to push it back, and by the end we just like didn't have time to do it. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it is just. I mean, I'd done a lot of scenes in cars before, like from the back seat, so I was confident that like, you know, if I just like made the rig right and like got myself into the right position and like didn't worry about how much my bones were going to hurt a few days later, that I could do something that was good enough.
Team. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really just a lot of I don't know. It was almost we had to work so quickly that I almost didn't really have time to think about the challenges. It was just like as long as something wasn't like egregiously wrong, I kind of just had to accept that like, you know, it's gonna like the background's gonna be overexposed in this shot because this is just what we have to do. Like this is where we're shooting. Like this is the time we have. We're just gonna like trust that, you know, the actors are charismatic enough to carry this scene forward, even and like people and just, you know, if somebody's not you know, if people aren't into the story enough and like aren't following the actors enough, you know, if they are into the story enough and are following the actors enough, then they're going to accept that the background is overexposed, and that's just the way it's going to be. You know, if we were doing this for like 6 weeks and we could like build a whole rig and like put, you know, ND filters all over the car, we would do that. But like, but that also is like part of what makes it so naturalistic too, because it just feels very in the moment and like flying by the seat of your pants. Like you're just like capturing the thing that's happening.
Absolutely. I think it just, yeah, go ahead, Hayley.
I wanted to offer an alternate, not an alternate perspective, but just a very different feeling of there was not room for me in the car with the sound and the camera. So I did a lot of just like waiting around for them to drive back and feeling like I had a lot of time on my hands. Luckily, we had like really rehearsed with the actors, like really created their characters in the story together. So I was very confident that they had it dialed in, but I was not actually like there doing stuff while the filming was happening. So
yeah, which was a lot of pressure on me. Like you really put a lot of trust in me to like make sure we were getting the things there, and a trust in the actors, which I should like. She did do like a full week of rehearsal with the actors,
Wow.
and I sat in, and they were doing that over Zoom, and then finally did like one in person, which I sat in for, and they were so dialed in at that point. It was really impressive. So yeah, a lot of like the work you did with the actors was like before we got there, which is part of what allowed us to do the whole thing in 3 days.
Yeah, that's really well.
Wow, man, 3 days. That is so impressive. I feel like I keep saying about how impressed I am with this film, Hayley, because I just love it. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, no, it's amazing what you guys have done. And you know, you're saying a lot about trusting with each other and the actors and the charisma that the actors bring. And I have to say, all of these elements and like flying by your seat of your pants, it totally all comes together. And I feel like it almost adds like that energy to the film and that heart to it. And they absolutely were captivating enough. I wasn't even noticing anything overexposed, and if it does, it just kind of really goes with the whole film in itself. It almost feels like more of an artistic decision anyway. But yeah, so do you guys have any upcoming projects that you want to talk about, or are you working together on anything else or anything individually that you're excited about?
Definitely want to work on more things.
Yeah. Her ideas. Yeah.
We both have ideas kicking around. There's just like nothing concrete yet.
Totally. I will say that I am like I've applied for some funding to maybe take this further to the specific project that I've like pitched is to just collaboratively create with the actors using the same process a full-length screenplay. So we'll see if that happens. That was also just another situation. Where it's like, oh, they're funding a thing that I have a thing that will fit. So let's see if they'll do it. But yeah, that's what I'm looking for right now is to see if we can make that work. That'd be fun.
Absolutely, totally. Well, we definitely hope to see more from both of you in the future. It was just, we're so lucky to be showing it at the Klamath Independent Film Festival. So thank you both so much for your time today. And was there any closing thing you'd like to add?
I mean, just a hearty thanks.
Thank you so much.
A lot of gratitude for everyone at the Klamath Independent Film Festival for all the work you do to like bring Oregon filmmakers together and to lift up their work, and for also including us this year.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much. And thank you for being a part of the Klamath Independent Film Festival.